Good evening, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this one-on-one interview of Brian Copeland, hosted by the California Historical Radio Society. I have the distinct honor of introducing an extraordinary individual who has left an indelible mark on the world of broadcasting, Rosie Lee Allen. Rosie is a true pioneer in radio with an award-winning career defined by her natural talent for storytelling and her ability to connect with listeners. From the early days of her career, she quickly became a beloved voice on the airways and television, known for her distinctive presence and engaging style. Over the years, she has received numerous accolades for her contributions to the industry, solidifying her status as a trailblazer. Tonight, she will be introducing and leading the interview of Mr. Brian Copeland, so please join me in welcoming Rosie Allen.
Yeah. Hi. Hello, hello, hello. I'm very excited to be here. This is really good for me, and I did tell you, I wrote an intro, so I have to read it. I don't typically write intros, I just, speak off the cuff, but I had to write this one because it's kind of special. It is a fact that our guest this evening wears a lot of hats. He is a multi-talented performer, writer, radio and television host, actor, podcaster, and now author. His first novel, titled Outraged, which you can see right there if you'd like to purchase a copy, and he will sign it for you personally at the end of the hour. He's also working on book 2 and book 3 in this series, and for the audio version, he's going to voice it himself, which will make a huge difference, because you all know, if you're here, what kind of talent we have and what a distinctive voice you have, so you definitely have to do it. By the way, I'm surprised that you're here because you've got 1,000 things going on. We talked about that, so we appreciate you being here tonight just to share your thoughts with us for all of these years of whatever you've been doing, and we'll cover most of it. It's a lot. Please welcome, and I'm not going to give you my Oprah, but Brian Copeland.
Thank you.
So, Brian, hi.
Hi, thanks for having me. This is an honor to be here, and it's so much fun to walk around and see all the pictures of of all of the people I grew up listening to, and oh my God, I forgot about it.
I've known you about 30 years.
About 30 years.
I did not know how much of a radio geek you really are. Mm-hmm.
I listened to you when you were on FM, when KGO had an FM. That's how far back I go. Remember that?
You do go back.
Of course you remember that.
Yeah, you do. Of course, yes. KGO FM. It was KSFX, and then it was sold and became KGO FM. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I'm well known for a couple of the shows on there, mainly Sex Talk with Don Chamberlain.
That's why I listened. I was in the 6th grade. Swear to God, that's why I listened. I was a 6th grader. Sex Talk? Wait, just leave it here.
I believe that.
I would put the radio between my mattress and my box spring while I listened to the whole thing.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. We know each other from KGO. You spent 27 years there, but you didn't start out at KGO. How did you do your first radio gig? And as I understand, you didn't get paid. Were you an intern?
Well, actually, there's a story I didn't tell you. And actually, I did start. Well, believe it or not, I actually forgot this. I actually did start at KGO. Okay. And as far as I know, I am the youngest person ever to host a show on KGO radio. Okay. Here's the story. I was 12 years old. And I used to be a regular caller on Al and Jazzbo Collins' show. Yeah. When Jazzbo did the overnights on Friday and Saturday nights. And I was and remain to this day a big comic book collector. So I would call, and Jazzbo's show was about nothing. I found like an old recording of one. It's like, it's about nothing. Really, before Science, it was about nothing. And I would call and talk about comics. So he asked me to come into the studio. And I came my little price guide, and people were calling in and talking about the comics they'd found. I'd look it up and tell them how much it was worth. So he had me back like 2 or 3 times. So what I didn't know, Jazzbo would have these coughing fits. I think I did it 3 times. Jazzbo would have these coughing fits on the air. Mm. What I didn't know until I was older was he would have these coughing fits because during the commercial break, he'd go in the bathroom and hit a hash pipe. So he'd come back on the air and cough. So we're on the air, and this guy's on. I remember rambling about some Archie comic book he found or something, and Jaspo starts coughing, and he turns his mic off and goes, "Punch up some calls, kid," and gets up and leaves. I am 12 years old on this 50,000 watt station in the middle of the night, so it's the whole Western United States.
People listen,
and they were listening, and I looked at the producer, who was Juan Escobar, was the producer, and Juan looks at me and goes. And so I started going, "Hi, you're on KGO with Brian Copeland. Hi, you're on KGO with Brian Copeland." And it was about 15 minutes. I'm 12 years old, so that was the first time. That was how I got into radio.
So what were you talking about? You're 12. You know nothing.
People would call up. What he had me on was to talk about comic books.
Oh, okay.
And people would call up with what it is that they had found or they used to have. And there was a price guide at the time where you could look it up and tell what the value was, and that was what I was doing.
Weren't you scared? I mean,
hi there.
Hi, Zoe. We have company. Were you afraid?
No, that's a funny thing.
You weren't nervous or anything?
No, I wasn't. Well, because I used to call him. I used to call him every week. I was a regular caller at 12 years old.
So you had a gap between 12 and the age of, I guess, 18. When you started, was it Live 105? Okay.
Well, actually, I was 22 when I started doing stuff in Live 105.
Okay.
When I had started stand-up when I was 18, and I had worked my way up to where I was good enough to be invited on Alex Bennett's Live 105 show. He used to have comics on every day, 2 different comics, and he had me on to try me out, and the other comic didn't show up. So it was the 2 of us, and we hit it off, and I did it for the next 5 years. I was on once a week, for 5 years. You kind of co-hosted with him.
So it was like a co-hosting. It wasn't.
Well, he was the host, but you ripped.
Yeah, well,
and then he would have other guests come in, and the comics would sit, kind of be like the Ed McMahon's.
Like the second banana.
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Yeah, I've done that. Yes.
It was kind of like that.
Second banana for 17 years. Now you did spend 27 years at KGO. How did you end up doing your talk show and all of the things that I know you did at KGO?
Complete my entire career, everything that I've done literally is a fluke. It's literally a fluke. The way that happened, I ended up on KGO. I owe a lot to my dear friend Sam Van Zandt. I owe Sam a lot for my career in radio.
Sam is here, by the way. Yeah.
I used to play. There was a pizza place. What was the name of that pizza place that had comedy here in Alameda? What was it? No, in Alameda, the pizza place where you and I met. There was a pizza place that was pizza on the top, and they had LaVal's Pizza, thank you. And they had comedy down below in the basement, and I knew Sam from listening to him on K101, and I used to watch him on TV20, and he would come and see me. I'm all nervous to Sam, and we got to be friends. So he was doing a show on KNEW at the time when KNEW was KNEW country? They were country then.
Somebody said it was country, but I was at KNEW in 1960. Yeah, and it wasn't country then.
Well,
69.
Oh, that's right. It was 69. Thank you, John.
Well, this was about 1990, and he gave me a.
That was the new KNEW.
Yeah, when they were out of Oakland, and he gave me a spot to do some comedy. I would write and record these little comedy sketches called the Sunday Funnies, and I used to listen to Ray Taliaferro every single night. All the comics did, because we'd be getting off work, the club's closed, we were driving home, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and we'd listen to Taliaferro, and I got to where I could do him, or I could impersonate him. So I wrote this bit, because Ray talked a lot about racism, but that was kind of like the running joke, was like anything you said to him, it ended up being racism being the thing. So I wrote this piece called Jay Tallahassee, the most paranoid black man in America. And I did Ray, and everybody, it was a 10-minute piece, so it's a long piece for Ray, especially then. And it ran, Sam ran it, and then Alex Bennett ran it after Sam did, asked if I had a copy of it, and then Bill Mann, who wrote for the Tribune, wrote the TV and radio column, heard it and gave it to Ron Owens.
Oh, Lord.
And Ron played it on the air because Ray had filled in for him the day before, and he goes, "Oh, let's hear what Ray did yesterday." And he puts this on. And so the phones blew up, and people were asking for copies of it and everything else. And I got a call from Bruce Kamen. Yes. Who was the
news director.
The news director.
He hired me.
He hired you.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he brought me
Smart
in too.
Man.
Brilliant man, because he brought me in too, both of us. And he said, "Would you like to do talk? Would you like to try to do talk?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah." And so Ray was going to be out for a Friday night. He was gone for a Friday night, and I came in, and it just fit. It just felt natural. It did 1 to 5, and then I got a call the next day. Chris Clark was doing the weekends. Mm-hmm. He was doing Saturday and Sunday in that same spot, and they go, "Chris Clark has had a family emergency. You want to do the next 2 nights?" And I go, "Yeah." And so that's how it started. And then I it's the first time I ever got paid. $150. $150 a show.
You were well paid.
Yeah. Every Friday. You can't get that now.
That's about what they're making now, right?
Yeah, you're not kidding.
For sure, that's about a week. But you did that for a long time, and then you ended up with your own show.
Yeah, I got my own show.
And very popular, by the way. But while you were doing talk on KGO, you were also doing stand-up. Were you doing movies then? No,
I was doing TV. I was doing. Well, first I was doing. I did my first show was on KQED. It was a late night show called Q. Which and that was the whole thing is what does Q mean? And they said, well, we just thought it sounded quirky. And it lasted 6 months, and it was. Probably the worst experience of my career, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I was glad to be on TV. It was my first TV, and I was green as hell. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was overproduced, and I mean, and it was just, I was so nervous because it was one of those things when. PBS is a very different animal.
Absolutely.
It's a very, very different animal in terms of what you can say and what you can and how you have to say it and, and those kinds of things. So it lasted about 6 months. And then I picked up an agent while I was doing that. And John Brennan, remember John Brennan?
I do.
A producer at KGO hooked me up with an agent who knew Fred Zender over at Channel 2. Mm-hmm. And he had me writing commentaries for Mornings on 2. I would come in once or twice a week and do funny pieces. And one day, this is about 1992, one day I used to go and sit in the control room after I'd do my spot and just, hang out with the crew and everybody, the executive producer. And one day I'm watching, I go, I'm watching Ross McGowan read the temperatures, the highs and lows and the weather. And I go, this show needs a funny black weatherman. And I was kidding. I was just joking. The next day, the executive producer of the show calls me and goes, Kevin O'Brien, who was running the station.
Lord,
Kevin O'Brien would like to have lunch with you. And we'd never met, by the way. And I go, why? He goes, he wants to talk to you about your idea. And I go, what idea? She goes, about you doing the weather. I go, I was just kidding. She goes, well, you have a lunch meeting. So we go to Kincaid's, and she goes, I'm sending Fred Zender with you because Kevin is very volatile.
Yes,
we want to make sure that you don't say something stupid. And he hired me. And so I was doing that. And then 3 months later, that's when they gave me my show on KGO. Radio was what I was doing. So I was doing 5 days a week of mornings on KTVU. And then I was doing Saturday. It was Saturday mornings I started.
So that was kind of the start of your busyness.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I was doing stand-up.
I know, and while all of that was going on, you probably, for me, had your biggest one-man show, and that's Not a Genuine Black Man. That's an amazing piece, and I've seen it actually probably 4 or 5 times. And
thank you.
It's quintessential Brian Copeland because it's all about your life. Mm-hmm. It's basically who you are. Tell us a little bit about how you came to write that, because it is so personal, but it's also funny, and it's a slice of life for, I think, most people, and it crosses all boundaries. It's not just about a black man. It's about it's about society as it is. So, what happened?
Well, now this was years later. This was in 2000 and. It opened in 2004.
But you were still at KGO,
originally.
though,
Oh, I was
right?
still at KGO.
And you were still at Channel 2.
And no, I'd left Channel 2.
I'd
left Channel 2 by then, and I was going through a life change. I was going through divorce and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, and I had been doing stand-up for, at that point, 20 years. As I said,
Wow.
it started when I was 18, and I was touring with Ray Charles and Smokey Robinson and Aretha Franklin and Dionne Warwick and Ringo Starr and toured with Open 4 and lots of this stuff. So I got to a place where I had wanted some comics for messing around with one-man shows. With stand-up, it's all jokes, just joke, laughs per minute. With a one-man show, you can go deeper, and it doesn't have to be a laugh a minute. It can be heavy and funny and so forth.
And that's kind of how that is.
And that's exactly how it is. So I knew that I wanted to write one, but I didn't know what to write one about. So at the time, I was doing Sunday mornings on KGO. I did Sunday mornings for like 16 years. And I had the great Carl Reiner on as a guest. And during a commercial break, I said to him, I want to write a one-man show. He said, I hear you're a comic. And I go, yeah. And I go, I want to write a one-man show, but I don't know what to write about. And he said, every writer-performer comes to this crossroads where they don't know what to do. He goes, for me, it was 1959. I had been writing for Sid Caesar for 9 years. Now Caesar's off the air. And I thought, what am I going to do with myself? And he got the advice. Actually, he read the advice from a book that the great Fred Allen, for all the radio fans, Fred Allen wrote called Treadmill to Oblivion. And what it was is you find the piece of ground that you stand on and write from there. And Fred Allen's piece of ground was dealing with NBC network knuckleheads and radio while he was writing this brilliant stuff that they didn't get. And so they would blue pencil out stuff that he would say to you, where were you when the pages were blank? Because he wrote it mostly himself. And so Carl took that advice and thought, okay, I have to find the piece of ground I stand on. What is it? I'm a married comedy writer. I live in New Rochelle with my wife and kid, and I write for a comedy show in New York. And that idea became the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Wow.
And he said, you got to find your piece of ground and write from there. And I go, I don't know what my piece of ground is. He goes, well, once you figure it out, then you'll have your idea. So I went on vacation for about 2 weeks, and I come in to the station, and I had mail that was sent to me while I was on vacation. I'm going through mail, and I get this unsigned letter. I say unsigned, you got them too, I'm sure, crank letters.
Many.
I used to have this guy used to send me letters that I used to call them ransom notes, because it was like the letters were cut out of like magazines, and you suck, I hate you. And it's like he took a lot of time. I mean, like several, this one for years. And so I opened it, I don't know, maybe usually if it wasn't signed, it's like I could tell it was crank, and I would throw it out. But for some reason, this one I didn't throw out. It was typewritten. And it said, as an African American, I am disgusted every time I hear your voice because you are not a genuine black man.
Wow.
And I thought, bingo, that's my piece of ground. That's it. Because for some reason I have dealt with this nonsense. You're not really black. You're an Oreo. You're white on the inside. And I thought, okay, why do people say that? Well, from the time that I was 8 years old, when my family moved to San Leandro, California, right next door to Oakland, at a time when San Leandro was well over 90% white, I spent my youth as the only black face in the room. So I thought, I'm going to write a show about what it is to be different, what it's like to be the only one. So I would walk my kids to school in the morning, sit in this little cafe by my house, and write just every story I could think of about what it was like to be different. There were all the stories of some were funny, some were just made me angry, some made me upset, and I realized there's a lot of stuff from that youth that childhood I repressed, because the fact that it was so painful. I'm 8 years old. I'm growing up with grown-ups driving down the street yelling the N-word out the window at me, that kind of stuff. So after, and I took the mindset that I'm going to write this like a diary, because that way, if I have the mindset that I'm writing a diary, then I'll be honest, and I won't censor myself. I just, with the mindset will be, nobody's ever going to read this. And so that's how I wrote. So once I wrote marble composition notebooks. And after I had about a dozen of these things, front and back pages filled, I thought, and I still live there. I thought, let me go to the library and look through microfilm and stuff and kind of find out what was happening around 1972 when we moved here. So I told the librarian what I was doing, the head librarian, Cindy Simmons, who's a dear friend, and she goes, "I got something you should see." And she hands me this sheet of typewritten papers that was a term paper for a sociology class that was what was then Cal State Hayward, by a San Leandro resident, and it was called "How San Leandro's 10 Homeowners Associations Keep the City an All-White Ghetto." And I went, "What?" And I looked at this thing and found out it was all this stuff. I knew we had a hard time, but I didn't know that it was literally an organized plot. I know the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights had conducted hearings because they wanted to know why it was that once you crossed the city limits from Oakland to San Leandro at Durant, if you were black, you couldn't get a mortgage. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, realtors wouldn't show homes there. Police, there was a cop whose beat was to sit there at the city limits, and if you were black, follow you until you were so intimidated you turned around and went back across the border, or there was a pretext to stop you. I found out that Newsweek magazine had come to town. I found out that there was a documentary that Westinghouse had done and ran on CBS stations across the country in 1971 about how bad it was. Fair housing advocates considered it one of the most racist suburbs in America. And I thought, okay, that's my story. Then it's not just my story, it's the story of the evolution of a city.
And that's where you lived at that time, right?
Oh, I still do.
Okay.
But now it's one of the most diverse suburbs in the country.
It's a great city.
As of now. But that's how that came to be. I found a great director who got what it was that I was trying to do. And I watched a lot of All in the Family because that was the rhythm I wanted. I loved how Norman Lear could make you laugh, and then the next minute, Edith got raped in an episode, or the cab driver got murdered on Christmas Eve, and it's just 1 minute you're laughing, next minute you're kicked in the gut, and that was what it was that I wanted to do.
Not a Genuine Black Man was like your first solo stand-up, other than
one-man show, solo play,
other than stand-up comedy.
Right.
So now you have written 7?
6 or 7. I've lost count, to tell you the truth. There's 6 or 7.
Have you performed all of them?
Oh yeah. There's no point in writing it if you're not going to perform it.
I don't know that. I haven't seen all 7. I've only
Shame
seen
on you.
Maybe 2, maybe 3. But the one that it really got a lot of notice, other than Black Men that I know of, was The Waiting Period.
The Waiting Period. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about how that one came about, because that's a
That's a heavy show. I had done Genuine at that point. I had been doing Genuine for 2012. I want to say 7 or 8 years. It became the longest running solo show in Bay Area theater history, and still holds that record. I brought it back in April and did the 1,000th performance of it, which is also a record of that show. I went through a real bad bout of depression, and I've suffered from it all my life, but I didn't know it wasn't diagnosed until, and I talk about it in Genuine a little bit, but I was in my 30s before it was diagnosed. And in 2008, I went through just a series of calamities, like all at the same time. Within a period of a few months, my grandmother.
A tough year for a lot of people.
My grandmother, who raised me, died suddenly of a stroke. I went through divorce. I got into a car accident, totaled my car, injured my spinal cord to where I had to have spinal cord surgery, and they weren't sure I'd ever walk again. And I was laying in bed popping Vicodin. And I decided I couldn't do this anymore. And I went to a gun store.
As in you didn't want to live?
I did not want to live anymore. And I bought and I wasn't in my right mind, after all this going on, and I'm on Vicodin. A 32 Beretta Tomcat that I picked up, that I bought. I didn't pick it up. That's the key thing. And there was a 10-day waiting period, as we have in California, before you can get your hands on a gun. And, by day 6, I came to my senses, and I didn't get it. So I'd always thought about maybe telling that story one day. Then a good friend of mine, a neighbor and a good friend of mine, has a nephew who I'd never met, 15-year-old kid named Colton Fink, who lived up in Oakley, and he struggled with depression. And one day, he sent all of his family texts that said, "I love you," and then laid down in front of a train.
Yikes.
In Oakley. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to tell my story, because maybe if I tell my story, maybe there's some other 15-year-old kid who will hear it and will realize that he's not by himself. So all my plays I do with David Ford as my director and collaborator. That's why I say you do them all, because we're writing and rehearsing and nipping and tucking and cutting and adding scenes and so forth, and staging and lighting and all that stuff before it hits the stage. It's 9 months or 10 months or a year before it hits. Some cases longer before it hits the stage. And we did it, and Chronicle gave it the little man under the chair, and it's a gut-wrenching show. It's a gut-wrenching show to do, and I did it for. Like I did Genuine originally, I think I told you, for 8 years, went off Broadway, everything else. This I did for about 10 months to a year, and I had to stop. I had to stop.
It was too intense?
Yeah, it was too intense, because there are parts in the play, because it's funny, the trick was to do a show about depression that wasn't a depressing show. Because it's funny, all my plays, I used Norman Lear's method. Then when he came out to see me, he said, "I love what you do." I said, "Well, I'm ripping you off." I go, "It is. I ripped him off." So, because when there are scenes in it when I am actually in what it is you follow me during the course of those days. And I interviewed some people who struggled and told their stories too. And there are scenes where I'm actually in the darkness and in the depression. And as an actor, I make myself go there and feel it. So, because if it's not real for me, it's not real for them. And the point of it is, if you are struggling, tell someone. If I can come up here and spill my guts to strangers, you can tell somebody that you are having thoughts not in your best interest. So, but it started to pull me back anyway, so I couldn't do it. So flash forward to 2014, we opened it in 2012, ran it for, like I said, about maybe 9 or 10 months. Flash forward 2014, our good friend in the comedy community, Robin Williams, committed suicide.
Of course.
And my publicist at the time in LA had been Rock Hudson's publicist when Rock Hudson told the world that he had AIDS. And he said, what's interesting about that is that changed the conversation about AIDS, because before that it was always those people who had it. And here was somebody we knew. He came into our houses, in our living rooms with Macmillan and wife, and we saw him on the big screen, and here's somebody we knew. He put a human face on it, and the conversation changed. And he said, this might be an opportunity for the conversation on depression to change, with this, now that people are talking about it because of what Robin did. So I thought, okay, I can bring this show back, but I can't do 6 performances this a week. There's just no way.
That'd be a lot.
But I said, what if I did a couple of shows, like a couple of Sundays a month, and I made it free to the public as a suicide prevention tool? And so that was in 2016, and here we are. I've been doing it for 10 years. I do it twice a month, free at the Marsh. One Sunday at the Marsh in San Francisco, one Sunday at the Marsh in Berkeley. And people have told me it literally has saved people's lives. I'll tell you, I know you got a lot to prep, but I want to tell this one story, and this is the story that I always, anytime I think, oh God, I don't feel like doing this today, because like anything else, sometimes you just don't feel like doing it, especially because it's so heavy.
You just want to stay home and watch football.
Yeah, it's Sunday, and it's a short show. It's only like 60 minutes, 70 minutes, and I got a letter from. I've gotten lots of letters on the show over the years and emails from a woman who told me that she was going to commit suicide. And she had it all planned out, this whole grandiose way that she was going to do it, where she was going to go to her favorite cafe in San Francisco and have her favorite latte and pastry, and then drive to the Golden Gate Bridge and jump. And she goes to her cafe, and she's sitting at one of the tables, and the pink section is open, and there's a picture of me in the pink section with this blurb underneath it. I'm doing the show about the rest of it. It's free, and it's in the city. So she thought, and so she flipped a coin. Heads, she would go to the show. Tails, she would go to the bridge and jump.
Yikes.
And it came up heads. And she came to the show, and she said she sat there and she watched it, and after the show was over and I left and they're cleaning up, she's still sitting there and she's crying, and she pulled out her phone and called her sister and said, here's what I'm thinking about doing. And her sister came and got her, and they got her help, and as far as I know, she's still here today.
Wow.
So that's what keeps me doing this show.
I was just going to say that has to be the main reason you continue to do what you do, because it's difficult to do what you do, but when you see an outcome like that, it really makes it worthwhile. while.
It does. And you know how, suicide is touched. Well, us at KGO, our dear friend Dwayne Garrett, who jumped
off the bridge.
From the bridge in 19... can you believe that's been 30 years almost? 1995,
yeah,
he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. And that and I was very close to him, and that just devastated me.
Oh, it devastated a lot of us.
It
because
just gutted me.
We did not know, no one had any idea.
No.
I mean, I'm sure there was someone in his life that may have suspected that he wasn't okay. But those of us who were with him every day, he was jovial, he was fun, he was interesting, he was endlessly kind, and generous. You never saw any of that. You never saw it. So that when, and our story, we covered everything at KGO, and I'll just do a little bit of what we did. Greg Edmonds was one of our super reporters, and we got Franco Gianelli, our producer, got a call on the CAD that there was a suicide off the Golden Gate Bridge. And so Greg Edmonds went to the bridge, and he was the one that found out that it was Dwayne.
I never heard this before. I didn't know this.
Yeah, and he had to call the desk. And then it took a while to make sure, because the identification was, difficult. But that's how that came about. It was one of the saddest days we ever had.
We all did his show that night,
yeah.
Because I was at home. I did Mornings on 2 that day, and I got a call from KTVU that told me. And so I called the station, and they said, come in. And we all came down. It was me, and it was Lee Rogers and Bernie Ward, and I can't remember, like 6 or 7 of us. And we went to Grumpy's and got shit-faced.
Yeah.
And then Bernie and I did Dwayne's show that night. And it was just, we're crying, and the listeners are calling. It was a horrible time.
Broadcasting was wonderful, but it's not always fun.
No,
it's not always fun.
But here's the good thing about that. And again, the thing that I miss about how radio has changed, and that is, because I had to go in, they made me come in to do TV the next morning because I was a mess. And they go, no, we're doing the thing. You knew him. You got to do it. You got to come in. And what I realized, because when I found out that next day, because Dr. Tara Fields was on.
I remember her well.
Dr. Tara Fields was on, and she said that what we did was we made the whole Bay Area one community in that 3 hours. Al Gore called in. He was sitting vice president, and Dwayne knew. He called in, and the entire Bay Area was listening to us, and it was like we were all in collective grief. We were all together, and we don't have, everybody's looking at their phones. We don't have that common experience anymore, and that's sad to me.
It is sad, but I think it's just growth, or maybe not. It's just change. And
progress.
Yeah, we get through it. I want to morph back for a second, because you mentioned to me that it was your fear of snakes that got you into television in the first place. Was that?
Oh, no. That's a different thing. that's a whole different thing.
Okay, well, tell me about that.
That's a different thing. I contribute right now a couple of pieces a month to NBC Bay Area.
Okay.
NBC Bay Area, they got a show called California Live.
It was the fear of the snakes that got you that job.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was talking to Valerie Staub, who was my boss. I did a show called 7 Live on KGO TV. God, I guess about 10 years ago now. And Valerie ran the station, and now she's the head of she's a mucky muck with the network. And I was talking to her one day, and I go, I'm going to do smart TV. Is there something to do? And she said, well, we got this show, California Live. It's 11:30 Monday to Friday, and it's broadcast live in San Francisco, Burbank, and San Diego. So the whole state gets it. So it's like they go to San Francisco for a segment, then they go to Burbank for a segment, then they go to San Diego. And so I was known on KTVU, I did stunts. I would do dares and do stunts.
I remember.
And so I thought, I'm going to do that again, because it was fun, because it's all, you can't, cooking segments bore me to tears. I mean, that's the morning TV, especially cooking segments.
I like cooking segments.
Yeah, okay, but once in a while it's fine. But I mean, and so I like to do something, that you've not seen. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use this show to conquer all my fears. and I'm afraid of snakes. So I pitched them to let me go to the East Bay Vivarium in Berkeley and interview the guy who runs it with an anaconda around my neck.
Okay.
And it was a dare. It was like a game show, like a contest that I had to do this 4-minute interview. But if I took the snake off before the 4 minutes was up, I lost. And so I'm talking to the guy, and the snake's like, and they don't tell me till the snake's on me that the snake is pregnant and hasn't eaten in a month.
Oh no!
And big yellow, and I'm like talking, and the tongue's coming out of my face. But I did it. I made it.
And so what did you get out of that? I mean, just...
to do more. That's what I got out of it. I just did one this week. I'm afraid of heights. I'm terrified of heights. You didn't know that about me, did you? I went to the Empire State Building in New York, and I wouldn't go to the top.
Oh, I've been to the top.
No, I wouldn't go to the top. Well, I went to...
I didn't look down.
Oh, well, what's the point of going to the top then?
Just to be there, to say I've done it.
Well, I went to so for my fear of heights, I took a hot air balloon ride in Sonoma this week. And
did you?
That wasn't scary. I thought it would be scary.
I think that's more beautiful than scary.
It really was.
Yeah.
I was surprised, but you're still up high.
Yeah.
And you know they can't steer. It's wherever the wind blows it. They don't know where they're going to land.
Yeah, that would bother me, especially surrounded by water the way we are. That would definitely bother me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but how far did you go?
We were up about an hour, and we ended up landing by the Santa Rosa the Napa Airport. I guess it was Napa Airport. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
that was for a piece.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's all stuff I do that I'm scared of. I'm scared of horseback riding, so I took a horseback riding lesson. So that's what it is that I do. I do
you have a lot of fear, Brian. I didn't realize that.
Well, I'd rather get paid for it than sit on a couch and pay somebody else for it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I say that with everyone. I go, it's a lot cheaper for me to do it this way than to lay on somebody's couch. We all got stuff we're scared of.
So you're an actor, but and your stand-up and all of those things would lend itself to acting. Mm-hmm. But you've actually done movies.
Yeah.
Okay, so I knew that, but I don't know which movies you've done.
You don't?
No. So.
Wow. Well, backing up to Not a Genuine Black Man.
Okay.
It was supposed to run for 6 weeks, and as I said, I ended up running for years. So after it had run for like during the second week, I got great reviews, and it was packed like every night. And the second week of it, I had it filmed. I had somebody tape it, and the idea being just so I have a someday when I have grandchildren, I go, someday when I was younger. And so Carl Reiner was on the show again. And I go, listen, I took your advice. I wrote this play, and people seemed to like it. And I just want to say thanks. He goes, well, have you recorded it? I go, well, funny you mention it. Yeah, we just taped it last night. He goes, send it to me. I want to see it. Overnight it to me. I want to see it. I go, okay. So I have it sent to him, and he calls me back 2 days later and goes, this is amazing. This is wonderful. You know what? I want Robbie to see this. I'm going to send this to Robbie. And I'm thinking, who the hell is Robbie?
There I go.
And he's talking about his son, Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner, okay.
And so he sends it to Rob, and his office calls me and has his Castle. He wants to meet with me at Castle Rock Entertainment the next week. So I fly down, and I met with him and his producing partner, and they wanted to develop it for TV. They loved it, and we had a deal set up at HBO, and I had several meetings. I went down and was meeting with him, and at one point we always met at his office at Castle Rock, and then one time he had me meet with him at Warner Brothers because they were prepping a movie. So we finished our business, and I'm getting up to I'm about getting ready to leave, and I go, so what's the movie? And he explains the movie to me, and it's the movie called The Bucket List.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, and he tells what the whole plot is about. And by the way, most people don't know that phrase did not exist before that film.
Oh, you're kidding.
No. The screenwriter's guy from, I believe, New Zealand, he wrote it. And what's funny is he was packing to leave. He'd been struggling for a couple of years. Screenwriter wasn't making it. He was literally packing to leave to go home when he gets the call from Castle Rock, Rob Reiner wants to make your movie. was in it. Is that a great story?
That's a great story.
And
I feel like I've heard the bucket list before.
Not before.
But okay.
Nope.
I'm going to go with you.
You can check it out. He made it up. So anyway, so he tells the story. I said, well, it sounds good. And I'm getting up to leave. My butt's halfway off the chain. I go, if Morgan Freeman needs a son, call me. And his producing partner goes, he's the right age. And again, my whole career is a fluke. I was just kidding. And next thing I know, he goes, we don't have a lot of money. I go, I'll do it for a hot lunch. I don't care. I did. I said that. I'll do it for a hot lunch. So I can guarantee you that, And so it was done kind of, they did it low budget. People don't know. They didn't go around the world. They found stock footage of like Egypt and stuff and put it in there. And I ended up doing it. I ended up playing Morgan's oldest son. Played his son in the movie, and I played the younger brother. We had a whole family, we were all Morgan Freeman's family. His wife was Beverly Todd, who was in Roots. My sister-in-law was Todd Bridges from the sister of Todd Bridges from Different Strokes. Yeah. And so we had all of these great scenes. We got to shoot on the set of Jeopardy with Alex Trebek. And that was one of the bucket list things. Mm-hmm. And when the movie got done, Rob has final cut, and he goes through frame by frame by frame. And even if he loved something, it's called murdering your darlings. You have to kill your darlings. And so most of the stuff that with family scenes, mostly all got cut out. I mean, if you see it, I'm like 5th or 6th billing in it, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. And I'm in 3 shots. You see me in 3 shots. I'm in a dinner shot, and then the scene where he dies. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. And the way you find he dies is a doctor comes out. There's no dialogue. It's music. Doctor comes out, tells his wife, and Rob goes, somebody should hug her. I go, I'll do it. Because I just seen a documentary on Mad World, and they're talking about how in Mad World they have all these scenes where all the comics are all together, then they all will take off and run somewhere, and Milton Berle found a way to be the last one every single time so that he got on screen by himself, and that's what was in my head. Because I knew that they couldn't cut. If they cut stuff out, that they couldn't cut. They needed that. And so that's it. So that's me that's hugging her. So that's the first one I did. Second, I've done 3. Second one I did, I just auditioned for was Venom, the sequel to Venom. Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And that one I had a good part in. That one, not a good part, but I had a lot of FaceTime. I played a reporter.
Okay.
I did have a scene with Tom Hardy. And that was a scary thing because they sent me. It was supposed to be a 1-day shoot. It was supposed to be a 1-day shoot at San Quentin. They were shooting in San Quentin because Woody Harrelson's character was in San Quentin, and it was on Valentine's Day, right before the shutdown. Okay. And so they had sent me the script, and they only send you the page that you need. So I memorized the whole thing, and I come ready to go, and they go, "There's been a change. We've added a scene with you and Tom Hardy, the star of the movie. Here's the new page. You have 5 minutes." Okay, so I'm with the star of the movie. I have 5 minutes to learn this thing, and they said change the location. It was out at Ocean Beach or something, not far from San Quentin. And so I memorized it, and then he pulls up. His driver pulls up in a golf cart, and good guy, Tom Hardy, good guy. And we're walking to where we're going to shoot, from the cart. And he goes, "You want to run it?" I go, "Yeah, that's right." So we run it, and he goes, "Well, I got a hard on." And I said, "Well, you could have bought me a drink first." And we did it, and it was really fun because they have a script person who goes through, whose job it is to go through line by line by line to make sure he did it. And like I said, something that was the gist of what the line was, and she was getting ready to jump on me, and he defended me. He goes, what he said means the same thing. Leave him alone. Ooh. Nice guy. Really, really, really nice guy.
Oh, that was saving you.
And that ended up turning into a 4-day shoot. So I'm in that a lot. And then they had me coming in during the pandemic doing looping, where you got to look at yourself and match your words to what it is that you said and how you said it. So that was the first post-pandemic film that they released. It made like $80 million or something the first weekend.
I'll have to get online and check it out. Yeah.
Okay. So the third one is the movie that development deal that we had with HBO for Genuine, and management changed at HBO, and it ended up falling apart, so it didn't happen. So I got a call a while back. Rob wants to try to develop it again. Oh. So we're working on it again, and he mentions that he's doing a sequel to This Is Spinal Tap. And I said, I would kill to be in that movie. I go, I'll do anything. I go, let me be a roadie, let me carry mic stands, just so I can walk by and count. And so, same deal. I get a call from people saying that they want you to audition for a part, and they sent me what it was a situation. It was like a one-paragraph situation, and it was a Zoom audition. And so on the Zoom was me, Harry Shearer, Michael McKeon, Christopher Guest, Rob Rydell. And what the premise, I can't say what the premise of it is because the movie's not out yet. But anyway, it's all ad-lib. It's basically all ad-lib. And he's laughing and they're laughing, and I next thing I know, 5 minutes later they called and I got it. We're going to shoot in New Orleans, and it comes out next summer.
Oh, wow. So we're going to be able to go to the big screen.
This is Spinal Tap 2. Yeah, it comes out next summer.
Oh, okay. Now, we're going to talk about your book.
Okay.
But, Brian, you have been busy. You've been so busy. I can't imagine how you ended up having 3 children.
Because I was getting busy.
And your son and your daughter, 2 of your children are...
3.
All 3 are in broadcasting.
3.
And so you're a media family.
3. Carolyn,
I know Adam is at KNBR right now.
Adam does afternoons on KNBR. Yeah. And I'll tell you what's funny. He started from the beginning. He started as an intern for them when he was in college at SF State.
I remember when he was a Tad.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. He's sitting on Greg Jarrett's lap dressed as Santa Claus at the Christmas parties, and handing out Giants bumper stickers, and then he got a job as a board op on 10:50 for them in like Saturday mornings or Saturday overnights or something, and because he has like this encyclopedic memory for statistics for baseball and football and stuff. And he used to make me so mad when he was a kid because I would buy him these books, these encyclopedias of baseball and stuff, and he would flunk all of these history tests, but he could tell me what Sandy Koufax's ERA in 1967 was, but he couldn't pass a damn history test. And I would say, well, how can you do this, but you can't? He goes, Dad, I'm not going to need that stuff. And he was right.
He's a savant.
And because of the fact that he, has such and knows, just the intricacies.
And you know that you guys sound just alike.
Everyone says that, and we don't hear it.
I'm going to tell you, I was listening before I knew that he was your son. I heard this voice on the radio. I knew he worked, but I didn't know that he did sports and all that. So I hear this voice and I thought, why is Brian doing sports? Because Brian doesn't know jack about sports.
That's what my sister said. My sister said the same thing.
I did not know that was your son. And then when they went to break, he said Adam Copeland. Then, of course, I knew that it was your son. But you guys sound, the voices are identical.
See, we don't hear it. People say it to us all the time. We look and we wonder if it's the cadence or what it is. But my sister was driving to the airport, driving her husband to the airport one afternoon because he does 2 to 6. So it was in the afternoon, and goes, "What's Brian talking about sports for?" He didn't say the exact same thing you said. What does he know about sports? So he does afternoon drive, and he does the Niners pregame and post game. Carolyn got her degree at State in journalism, and she worked her way up. She interned for and wrote for the Chronicle, the Examiner. Then she got hired at Channel 7 in the newsroom, and then she got hired in the newsroom at KGO. And it's hard. I come to find out it's been very difficult for them in some respects because they have to prove themselves, because people assume because their last name is Copeland that's the only reason they're there, and they're more than qualified. And like Carolyn told me when she went in for the interview for the job for KGO in the newsroom, that she found this out later, that whoever it was that was doing the hiring said that, I got one of the host daughters coming in. I got to play nice and then let her down easy. And she just blew her socks off. She was the best one for the job, and so she beat the other candidates. But she says it's just constantly that people will you will make that assumption. And Casey, who's my youngest one, who is a musician, started and now moonlights on KNBR as a board op. So all three of them.
Cool.
Yeah, Carolyn right now is out of broadcasting. She's a managing editor for a news website called Prism that covers news from the perspective of underrepresented groups, people of color, LGBTQ, the incarcerated. So they do good work.
And she's mom to your only grand right now.
Well, you didn't tell people I have a granddaughter, but yeah.
He has a granddaughter.
I'm much too young for that. No, she's adorable. She's absolutely adorable. And she's 2 and she's at the age where every day she says something that's funny, you know. Her middle name is Holly because I'm a big Buddy Holly fan, and I made Carolyn a Buddy Holly fan, so she named her middle name Holly. So she asked me to sing Buddy Holly songs to her. So one night, about 2 weeks ago, I'm rocking her, and I'm singing her True Love Ways. And usually we say, like, I got her sing. There's a video on YouTube or something of us. I posted of her singing "Old Boy" with me, so she knows those. And so I'm singing "True Love Ways," which is a ballad, which she's never heard. And she stops me. She calls me Pappy. She goes, "Pappy, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?" I go, "Honey, it's a love story. What are you talking about?" And I go, "Fine." So then I changed. I did something else, another slow one. And she goes, she says something like to the effect of, "Don't you know any that are happy?" And I go, "Forget it. Old MacDonald had a farm." Yeah.
All right, so now you've done all of those things, and we've just touched the surface. So now you decide you want to write a book, and you've done so. And you're, like I mentioned earlier, you're on book 2, and book 3 is coming up. You're done with book 2.
Well, we have time for the story?
Yeah.
I told you in 2000 I was going through a life change. And I went to this place in San Diego to kind of figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. This place called the Optimum Health Institute. And what you did there was you ate raw fruits and vegetables that they grew and drank wheatgrass juice and walked around and pondered and paid them $1,500 a week to do it. And so one night, it just came to me, there are 3 things I want to do before I die. One is I want to write a one-man show and perform it. Second is I want to part in a movie. Third is I want to write crime fiction. I've always wanted to do it. I've been a crime fiction fan since I started with the Hardy Boys when I was a kid. I read everyone from the Tower Treasure to the Mysterious Caravan. I think it was the last hardcover, like 50s. In high school, I got into the Perry Mason books, and I read every one of Mr. Gardner's 100 and however many books. And then I got off into thrillers from that. And so I decided that, late in my career, whatever I did, when I stopped performing and doing everything else, I would end it by just, when I was too old to do anything else, I would write crime fiction. So while I'm doing this other stuff, I'm going to study and I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to learn how to do it, and while I'm doing the other stuff, I'll be studying along the way. So across the street from this health place was a Barnes & Noble or a Borders, I can't remember which one, and I picked up 2 books. I picked up Stephen King's On Writing, and I picked up Sue Grafton's A is for Alibi, the first in the Kinsey Millhone books.
I know that.
So I read the King book first, which is the best book on writing I've ever read. I have read it 4 or 5 times. I've read it. First half is autobiographical. Second half is primer about when to use adverbs, when not. And then I read A is for Alibi, and I just loved it. So by the time I left that place, I had read up to D. And so then I discovered Jonathan Kellerman's books, his Alex Delaware books. I discovered, Walter Mosley books. And then I was thinking, I'd like to ask these authors, like some of these questions, how did you come up with this, or what's your technique? And I thought, wait a minute, idiot, you got a radio show. They got books to promote.
Ask them.
And so what I did is I started booking the crime fiction writers who I wanted to ask questions to and basically get in a private master class. So Sue Grafton was the first one.
Oh, how cool
And
is
she
that?
was up to N. And it's for News, I think it was. And we got to be friends. And she came on for every single book from then on until her last one, Why. I think I did the last interview with her maybe 3 weeks before she passed. She didn't make it to Z. And she gave me the first basics she taught me, and I would ask her in commercials, was that what you need to know is who committed the murder and why. Those are the two things. And I asked her, how did you come up with your series? She said, she told me the story. She was going through a nasty, nasty divorce and custody battle, and she would lay in bed at night thinking of ways to kill her ex. And she realized that, she goes, I know I could never hurt a fly, and if I tried, I'd get caught. So she killed him in a book. And in A is for alibi, the victim is her husband, her ex-husband. And later on, by the time I had met her, it was years past, and they laughed about it, and they were friends, and everything was okay. But she taught me that, and the other thing she taught me was when you're writing, if you get stuck, throw in a body. Just throw in another body, and it gives you somewhere else to go, So then the next one I had on Walter Mosley. I read Devil in a Blue Dress, which takes place in 1940s Los Angeles. And I asked him, I said, okay, your descriptions of 1940s LA are like so detailed and intricate. What kind of research did you do? He goes, made it up. I go, what do you mean you made it up? He goes, it's fiction. I made it up. He goes, everybody knows, so everybody knows Hollywood and Vine. Everybody knows Sunset Boulevard. There are certain places everybody knows. And then the other stuff he made up. So, it's okay to just make stuff up and play with it. And then Jonathan Kellerman was the biggest one because he and I became friends when I got a book contract for Not a Genuine Black Man. That was actually my first book. Nonfiction based on the play. And I would have times when I had pages that were due. I got this big advance, and the second half I would get when I turned in the manuscript in a year. So I wanted to finish the book because I wanted the rest of the money.
Yeah.
So when I had pages due, I would price line a hotel 50 miles from my house somewhere. I had to be a 3-star so I could get room service. And I would go in and lock myself in for a week, and I could not leave the room each day until I'd done my pages.
That's discipline.
No, I had to lock. That's not discipline. If it was discipline, I wouldn't have had to lock myself in.
Yeah,
really.
but maybe that's the form of discipline you chose.
Yeah, maybe. Kind of like prison. I guess it's really discipline. Most discipline. Yeah. So I did what writers do, and that is I procrastinate. When you're supposed to write, and you procrastinate. I watch judge shows and all this. So I'm sitting there afterwards. I'm trying to think what I'm supposed to be writing, and I'm thinking about Jonathan Kellerman because I've been listening to all of his books on audio. And I thought, I wonder if he has a website. So I Google, and he's got a website, and I go to it, and it says, contact me, and I write, hi, my name's Brian Copeland, you're a writer, I'm a writer, let's be friends. Half hour later, he writes me back. And we start this correspondence. And when his wife Faye is a New York Times bestselling author too.
Well, yeah.
And when I opened in Los Angeles and walked out, front row, Jonathan and Faye Kellerman are sitting in the front row, and it's like, oh my God, this is surreal. My favorite author sitting right here.
You were doing your stand-up?
I was doing Genuine. I came out to see the play. So he held my hand through writing that book in terms of how, I can't. Yes, you can, and here's how you do it, And so he and I, he's like my biggest mentor in crime fiction writing. So I had a new play that was coming out. The play, and I'll get to what this is about in a second. I had a new play that was scheduled to come out in April of 2020 called Grandma and Me, an ode to single parents. And we had the shutdown, so now I have nothing to do. And it's me, and I'm living with my young, I should say he's living with me, my youngest kid at the time, and he's a musician, and I'm thinking, well, why don't I write this book I've been talking about for years? I had it all figured out by the time I got to that point. I knew who my detective was, and I decided to set him in the world that I know, which is broadcasting, and I made him an investigative reporter for Channel 6 in San Francisco, and the building is our building. It's the ABC Broadcast Center. I call it something else, or the former ABC Broadcast, but it's our building. You'll recognize it from reading it.
I do.
And his sister is SFPD homicide, and I knew you have a family, and I wanted it to be a series, and in a series you've got the family that's in every single book, the certain characters. But I didn't know what to do with them, okay? Then an unarmed African-American man who was in mental distress got shot to death by a police officer in the parking lot of Walmart in San Leandro. And I thought, that was the same year we had all the shootings. And these things all kind of follow the same pattern. It's like you have the shooting, then they put the cop on administrative leave with pay. There's outrage. They finally release some of the video. There's more outrage. Then they find a way to say that it's justified. Sometimes there's civil unrest. Meanwhile, the the media is swarming the cop if they've identified him and swarming the family of the victim. Then it goes away. Sometimes there's civil unrest, like with Oscar Grant. Then it goes away until the next one. And I thought, what if I wrote about what it's like for the family of the cop and the family of the victim after the cameras and the microphones are all gone? And that was kind of my jumping off point for this.
And that's outraged.
And the working title of it was administrative leave.
Oh, it was?
So every morning I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would go in the spare bedroom and I would write. And Casey would go in his room where he had his recording equipment, and he'd work, and then we'd watch movies at night, Netflix and stuff in the evening. And at the end of the shutdown, I had that book, and he had an album.
Oh, wow.
So it was my agent that came up with
this
that.
is very good. I read it. No, I read it. It was very good. I gave you some stars on
Thank you.
Audible, on Amazon.
Thank you.
So you're in book 2.
Well, let me tell you. So they get done with it, and they really liked it, and they have somebody who reads through and kind of grades it. Somebody in house, and they gave it like a 10 out of 10 or something like that. And so they said, "Want to write another one for us?" They go, "Well, yeah, it's supposed to be a series, sure." And so they gave me, I forget how long they gave me, but I wrote the second one, and I decided I wanted each book to be about something. All of my work is social commentary. Everything from the stand up to the plays, to everything is all been social commentary. So this one is about it's about police. The main I want to entertain people, of course. I don't want to hit people over the head, and they want to be entertained. And what it is somebody's killing cops in the East Bay, and it's all local places in the East Bay who have shot unarmed black people and not been punished for it. Oh. And so my detective, Topher Davis, and his sister, Lynn Sloan, SFPD homicide, are trying to unwind it and figure out who did it. So that's what the first one's about.
Lynn Sloan.
Yes, it is Lynn Sloan.
I wondered why you used Lynn Sloan.
I don't know. It just popped into my head. Lynn Sloan was a producer at KGO.
Yeah,
who I love dearly.
Yeah.
And it just, when I was writing it, popped into my head. Okay. And I mentioned to her, I go, by the way, you're in a book. and she was there when we did the launch at Book Passage. So they said, write another one. So the second one I wrote, I came up with an idea. I wanted to talk about the difference in police attention in media coverage between when a white woman goes missing and when a black woman goes missing. So I've got a white woman in Pleasanton who's pregnant, who goes missing, and it turns into Lacey Peterson with the People magazines there and Good Morning America and the whole thing. And then this African American woman comes up to Topher and says, "I live in East Oakland. My daughter's been missing longer. She's the same age. I can't get anybody paying attention to me. Will you help me?" So he's looking at both of them, and they end up coming to a nexus. So
and what's the title of the second one?
That second one's called Shadows of Justice, and it comes out May 1st is when they're publishing that. So they said, "Great, write us 2 more."
Oh, wow.
They said, "Write us 2 more." So I'm in the middle of the third one right now, and the third one I'm writing about Russell City. Anybody here familiar with Russell City? I'm writing about Russell City.
I don't know Russell City.
Russell City was
maybe I do. I just don't know that.
Was an unincorporated area of Hayward, which is in Alameda County, which is where if you were black or Latino, you could not buy in Hayward, San Leandro, San Lorenzo, Union City because of race covenants. So they put them there, and it was under the auspices of under the control of Alameda County. Well, they gave these people this is all post-World War II, from like the 40s, 50s to the 60s. And they gave these people no infrastructure. They had outhouses. Few houses had homes. Roads weren't paved. There weren't street lights, no police department, no fire department. So in the late 50s, they determined, Alameda County decides that it's blighted. They call it blighted and decide to take it through eminent domain. Now, there are people there who have homes, that they own the land, they own the homes, and through eminent domain, they can just take it and pay them what they say it's worth. So these people fought for their homes, and they're burning down the house. Somebody's burning the houses down while they are fighting the county.
So that's book 3?
And so, I got a murder that's involved in the thing. So, but the way it ends up basically is they took these people's land, gave them $2,000 each, take it or leave it, kicked them out, and then sold what was there to developers for $42.63 million.
A lot of.
And so, I come to find out in research, they did this all across the country. There was the place in Southern California, Chavez Ravine, they did it. They did it near Chicago. And so that's the point of it, but there's a murder that's tied in with the fires.
Okay.
And that they got to unwind. It's a cold case they've got to unwind.
Outraged. I think we need to end it here. But thank you so much, Brian. If anyone would like to purchase Outraged, $20?
Yeah, it's just cost.
Signed from Brian. See us after the show. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for having me. Listen to me babble for an hour.
Oh, no, it was wonderful. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot about you that I didn't kind of know so much.
Not so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor.
All right. Yeah.
And thank you for coming on Friday night.
Yay. Here comes Rachel.
Oh, I suppose you want this back.
I do. I am not a broadcaster, so I am slightly less comfortable with a microphone. Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Rosie. Thank all of you for coming. We do these basically once a month. We won't have another one till January. We have our holiday party in December, but if you want to stay up to date on the things that we are doing, you can do that on our website, which will have an all-new face starting Monday.
Oh, it's Monday. Okay.
It's coming.
I can't wait.
And everything's going to be updated on it. It's going to be very user-friendly and simplified, so hopefully that will be a great place for you to go and find out about all the things that we are doing. You can adopt a brick if you've not done so and you would like your name in the entryway, and talk to me if you have any questions.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Adopt a brick. Oh,